Hello. I think we are going to remake this game with fewer annoying sounds. I have to remember what the controls are. S is crouch. Oh, oops. F is flip. So we can do a flip in the air. Start. And J is jump. J is jump. So we can duck under things, jump over them, and there are various objects that show up. So we are going to basically remake this game as just a little example. I think we'll work with Scratch, so it's going to be a window of the size 480 wide, and what is this, 360 tall? So let's make some graphics. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. We can kind of make up whatever we want, but let's open a graphics editor. So we will need something for the ground. Now, I don't really know why the ground lights up in particular, but we'll just kind of keep it simple. We could do a tile. We could do a longer image. We'll need stuff for the enemies. Maybe we'll just make a little list of what kind of enemies we see, and then some kind of background. Then we'll just use scratches in quote-unquote engine stuff for the text. So I tried to take some screenshots of different parts of the game. There are various obstacles. There's not really any difference to them. They, at this early level, don't move. Some are in the air, some are on the ground. So I would probably just have a air enemy and ground enemy or obstacle, and we can figure out what that will be. And then, you know, if you wanted to expand it, you could add maybe a flying enemy goes up and down or whatever else. So what theme am I going to make this into? This game is called Acrobat, which it just looks like a dude running in the mountains. Maybe I'll come up with a different type of theme. I'm thinking of just calling this dude running in the mountains the game. So I might just make a grass tile, and then that can be tiled on the bottom. I'm going to try to make this shaded so it looks a little bit nicer than just plain MS Paint style art. We'll hopefully get it to tile and look okay. Sometimes flat colors are good, like you don't necessarily need a lot of texture, so we could just keep it pretty flat. Let me see, dirt, image, like we could even just do a pattern. Like that wouldn't look good, but it could be just kind of zigzags, which would give it some characteristic, kind of like how, like in Sonic games, you have a lot of grid textures. I could also just do a grid and take like a quarter of the sprite and do that, and a quarter of this sprite and do that, and then we have kind of a tiled thing. I mean, that could be good. Over here, I just created the Scratch screen size, and I'm just pasting some stuff in to see what it might look like when it's tiled, and in the game, we can kind of just keep with this simple style. Let me draw some dude. What kind of dude hikes in the mountains? I don't know, I'm not really a hiker. Since I made this tile 32 by 32, I'm going to make this one 32 by 64 because this guy is going to be tall, so he needs to duck. That noise is annoying. We'll just leave him dead, curled up for some reason. But we'll make like a really basic animation. So a very, very basic 2-frame walk animation would be legs down, so you're a little bit higher up, legs out. Technically, if I made this 3 or 4 frames, I would make it obvious which leg is in front. I'm not going to use this sprite, I'm going to add on to it, but I'm just showing this off, so it'll be, you know, left leg front, then middle, then right leg front, then middle, and so on. Or maybe it'll be a game about a hiking moose. One of the enemy or obstacle types is just a TV. So we'll have an old-timey TV as one of the obstacles. And then as far as a different obstacle, like an air obstacle, they just had X's and faces. Maybe I'll just do a bird? I don't know. This enemy kind of reminds me of a jellyfish, so maybe I'll just have jellyfish flying in the air. Then for the background, we could make something that's just kind of one screen wide. And let's just do kind of some mountain shape. So it'll loop, but hopefully it won't be too annoying. We could also do 2 layers and do a parallax scrolling sort of thing. So maybe it'll look something like this. And then like this layer will move at a different rate. Well, we'll look at it. So over here in Scratch, I can import new background. We are just going to upload my plain sky image. So it's just going to be blue. We're going to get rid of this guy. I will want the mountains, but I'll probably just upload those as sprites over here. They have a bunch of starter stuff you can use. Let's upload mountains. Actually, can I upload all of them? Oops, nope, stop searching. Upload these. Okay, so then those ended up kind of smaller. I think it's changed the size of them, but player frame. Oh, where did everything go? Did I move? Oh, I uploaded the backdrop. I don't need that. Okay, so player frame. I can also add more frames here. So I'm going to add frame 1 and 3. So we'll have this leg front standing, that leg front. Oops, and we'll add the other frame again as the middle frame because we can reuse it. So that would be frame 2. All right, so in here we can kind of resize everything. I can change this to, what is it, 360 or 480? Or is this like 100%? There. This is more of what I intended. Mountains in the background. Those will be behind. So I think, how do I adjust this? I don't remember. I don't know. Okay, well, that's not in front now. These guys got pulled behind, and I didn't upload my ground. So let me go ahead and make a ground as well. So in this case, I just put the tiled ground all together, and I'm going to have 2 of these, because when you're partially scrolled, if it'll let me kind of place that there, you'll need another second one to be tiled over on that side. So we can program that to keep kind of looping around, and once it's completely off the screen, then it goes to the other side of the screen. We could start the moose over, let's just put him here, and then we can put enemies in different places, but we should only really work on one feature at a time. So for instance, I think maybe I'll just start with the scrolling. So we'll need to add logic to mountains, mountains, ground, and ground. So in the events tab, I need when the green flag is clicked, basically when the game starts, and we're going to keep moving it to the left. Continue looping forever, change X by -5. We're going to see that move, but then we run out over here. So I'm going to just start off, actually I should also put, initialize it to a location, because right now it's just going to hang out there. So we will initialize it to this position. We can just go here and set X to 186 is where it's currently at. We can do the same over here for the other ground just to make sure we have that saved. Set X to where it's currently at. Then it's going to move. When do we want it to loop? Actually, I kind of want to set the Y coordinate too. Set that there, just in case I move things around. Okay. So basically, once this scrolls all the way and its rightmost edge is off the left side of the screen, then we want to move it back over on this side and it'll come back around. So what does that mean? Well, this ground is 480 pixels. So basically, the left side of the thing is what the XY is tracked on over here. So this would be a X position of 0. This would be an X position of -480. So we can add an if statement. If And let's see, we need, if our x is less than, so we have to come here, motion x position is less than negative 480, then we are going to move it. So once it's off the side of the screen here, we want to move it all the way off the side of the screen on that side. So again, this is its 0 position, but if we want it over here, the width of the screen is it 480? Yeah, 480. So then we set this to 480. So that will hopefully get it to keep moving. We'll just start it with this one flag, and we can see the gap, but we'll use the same logic for the other side. Oh, it's not quite. I wonder if Scratch just prevents it from going that far. This is at negative 465. Can try. We can also adjust the speed by changing this right here. Okay, this is less than, but we don't have less than or equal to. Let's try 460. Well, that should work as long as they're always looping the same way. But then when it went to the other side, I'm not sure if it went quite to 480. It probably only let it go to a certain amount, but we'll kind of see how this goes. I'm going to also add this logic to ground here. And then we should have something relatively working. I hit it, so there we go. So it looks like the ground continues. But we have the 2 pieces of ground. We're just looping it back around over and over. And then we can add on the moose walking animation. So over here, we'll also need when the game starts. We're going to repeat forever. We want it to move to its next frame. So these are just called costumes here. So I'll just say next costume. This might be too fast. Yeah, so we might need to have it do that less frequently. So we could have a little counter. We could say variable, let's say animation. We're going to set it to 0 at first. Every time we'll change it by 1. If we don't want it to change the frame every single cycle of the game, we need to figure out our cooldown basically for each frame. So let's try and say when animation is 10, so we'll go back to our variables. When the animation variable is at 10, then we're going to go to the next costume, and then we also need to reset this back to 0. So let's see if that works. That's a lot slower. That works a little bit better. And then we can kind of add logic here, and we'll want to spawn these, but we have single items at the moment. So we'll have to do that in a certain way in Scratch. I'll have to remember. But before I do that, let me go ahead and do the parallax scrolling for the mountains. It'll be pretty much the same as with our ground, except we're going to change speed values. So with the mountains, this one is currently at 290, so we want to keep it at, or sorry, not that, -3, -25. We are going to change it maybe by the same speed as the ground. Over here, mountains 1, we'll kind of just keep adjusting this until we figure out what we want. I'm going to make that one go by faster. And of course, we need another mountain thing so that we can keep looping. Otherwise, we'll have that gap. So we'll duplicate and duplicate this as well. We'll start these at different places. So let me go ahead and hide these at the moment. We don't want these to start at the exact same location. So we'll have, let's say this guy starts here. And this guy starts here. So this is going to be 156, -8. This one is going to be a -327, well, it should technically be the same value. So let me just set these to the same Y, X, and will that kind of loop smoothly? We won't be able to see this part because it will be behind the ground. We might need to tell it go to the front layer. Okay, so we want, well, I just want it to adjust. It's kind of weird that you have to set it this way, because when the game begins, how do you tell it which one's the front layer? But here we have the mountains moving with the same speed. Back here, we have these two, so we'll have one over here. And let's put this, I did not mean to put that seam in there, but we'll just kind of go with it for now. 31-ish. And then negative 277, negative 277. And I can go back into my image editor and adjust that. Oh, wait. 337. Okay, that was too much of a gap. So, let's move this over here again. So we'll do negative 218 for this guy, 257 for that guy. Okay, so there is some change in this overlap here, probably just because of the amount we're changing this by, and then also this isn't quite exact, so it'll have this weird overlapping mountain. But let's see how this looks. Actually, we want, ugh, my things are all in the wrong order again. But hopefully we won't have to code this anymore. So it does go in the background. That side mountain does look kind of weird. I could change that up by just removing this last part of mountain. I might actually be able to do that here in Scratch. Just get rid of that part. Over here, we could get rid of it as well, or we could do something else. I don't know. Is that going to leave a huge gap in the middle? Yeah, we'll just keep that one on that one. So hopefully, oh, also, oh, it's this side as well. That's kind of weird, but I might just edit that later. Let's just implement the logic of these guys as single objects for now. So again, when the game starts, loop forever. This guy as well. And they're also going to just continually move to the side. So we'll need motion, change x by -5, and if its x coordinate becomes less than, what did we use here? Oh, we didn't use there. -460, which this one is not that long. This is 32, so it could be like 32 pixels off the screen. We can see if this works. Again, it seems like Scratch adds a buffer so your stuff doesn't go all the way off the screen. But if that happens, let's go ahead and put this 480 plus the width of the little guy. So 480 plus 32, 512. We'll also set its Y. Let's kind of put it right there. So to start with, it'll be there. And then it should just kind of slide along. Okay, I have the wrong number for position is -30. It should be, this is -480. So I guess -512 we'll try. Run TV. Oh, see, it's it won't let it get that much off the screen. It is currently at -241. So let's try that. Yeah, because 0 is right in the middle. So -240 over here. I keep thinking in like, if you're coding in C++ or Python, and using like a normal graphics library, usually this is 0, 0. So the center here is going to be here. We can do the same thing with our little octopus guy or our jellyfish. And so I copied that twice. We can get rid of this and that. Okay, but I actually want this to start at a different position. We'll just put them up here. -40. We'll start its X at where it's currently at. We'll start this thing's X maybe over there. So then they should both scroll now, and then now we need to add collision detection. So if they hit each other, then the moose loses a life, or we lose the round, or something like that. We could implement a lives system. We could add little hearts, or we could just start with a number at first. So we'll make a variable lives. We'll just do that. It's global. We'll set it to 0. Technically, it belongs to the moose. So we'll set lives. Let's set it to 3. So when the game starts, it's at 3. We'll need to see if moose runs into TV, then remove a life. So I'm going to come down here. If, we're going to need it for 2 different ones. If it runs into the TV, or if it runs into the jellyfish. So we actually have an OR statement. We can throw that in there. Then there are sensing things in here, so we don't actually have to implement the collision detection. We can just say is, let me see, where is it at? I don't remember. Let me look around. Okay, we can just say if it's touching the obstacle 1 or touching obstacle 2, then we lose a life. And we'll say change lives by -1. Now an issue here is the moose will be touching the TV for a little bit because there's multiple pixels. It's not just 1 pixel. So we'll need to make sure that we have some sort of timeout, you know, so the player doesn't continually take damage. So we'll do another variable and say damage cooldown. That doesn't need to be global. We'll set damage cooldown to 0. When they get hurt, we'll set it to, let's maybe say 20. And we're going to need to keep subtracting from that every time through the loop while that is a larger number. Now, we could use a bunch of and/or statements, but let's go ahead and say if we hit a obstacle and if our cooldown is equal to 0, so where's our damage cooldown? If it's 0, that means we can still get hit. If it's not 0, we're not going to get hit. So change lives by -1, set animation, damage cooldown. Set damage cooldown to 20. So let's see if this works the way I think. So lives went to 2, but it didn't subtract a ton. Okay, my damage cooldown, I don't have something counting down on that. We can also display it to the screen. It gets set to 20, and then it's not going down. So we need to make sure to also say, let's do duplicate here. Along with our animation, if the damage cooldown is, we're going to do greater than 0. So if we still have a cooldown counter that we're working on, we need to subtract 1 from it. So that will cause it to cool down eventually. There we go, and we can see kind of the period of time when you're invincible after you get hit for a little bit. If we didn't have that, sometimes you see really old games where you can just sit on the enemy and your health just drains immediately, and that's not great. So this is our damage cooldown. This is checking to see if we're touching an obstacle. We'll also need the ability to, we could probably just do jump and like lean or crouch. I will need to draw some sprites for that. But I don't think we need flip. We might not make it that sophisticated at this point. So here's a jump. I put this rectangle here. This is half the height. So it'll still have like technically some collision, but we can add like a counter to say if you're jumping and the jump counter is blah, and you touch the thing that you're jumping over, then it doesn't hurt you. So we'll just create this, save it as player jump, and we'll need a 1 for crouch as well. So we'll add those frames here. We will have to adjust the animation logic because at the moment it's just going between every frame. We want it to stop at frame 4 for the basic walk. So set next costume. We're going to change this up. And probably we'll do next costume, but if you're currently on costume 4, you don't need to go to the next one. So let's see. Looks, if current costume, costume number is 4. We could also do, let's do our if-else statement. So here, if the costume is less than 4, then we'll go to the next costume and set the animation. Throw this in here. Get rid of that one. Otherwise, if it's 4 or above, then we want to set the costume back to 0. And hopefully that will loop it properly. Okay, nope, it stopped. I also didn't set animation back to 0, so we need to do that too. Okay, so now the animation works okay. We'll also have to account for stuff when we are doing a jump, because that will be stuck on the frame it needs for jump. Now, this is starting to get ugly because this is a lot of logic in our player character. Let me see. I haven't made a block before. Maybe I can make something kind of like a function. I know we can do these broadcast messages, so we can kind of split up this logic. So we could do something like, if we get hit, we can move that to one of these. We can do, if we have a cooldown timer, then do one of these. Maybe we can clean this up a little bit. Okay, so I've kind of split these up. We can keep adding on. So when we hit up arrow or W, I put this check input in here. So we want to start a jump time thing. I'll create a counter for jump cooldown. And we'll create one for crouch cooldown. So to start off with, we're just going to initialize all of these to 0. So jump cooldown is 0, and crouch cooldown is 0. So if they're hitting the up arrow, I'll just kind of nest another if statement in here. If they're hitting a button and that cooldown timer is 0, they're able to do that command. So put that. If the crouch cooldown is 0, then we can successfully do the thing. If the jump cooldown is 0, then we'll successfully do that thing. So we can kind of just throw these around somewhere else so I can see this better. Okay, so we're going to start our jump. Let's have jump cooldown go to 20, or crouch cooldown go to 20. And let's update what sprite is displayed. So we're going to change costume. This one's going to be crouch. And this one's going to be jump. Now we can only currently go to that state and nothing really happened. See, there's no jump cooldown happening and I won't be able to jump again. We'll need to adjust our cooldown timer. I created this update cooldowns quote-unquote function. So same logic here. For the various cooldowns we have, if our jump cooldown is greater than 0, we're going to subtract from it. If our crouch cooldown is greater than 0, we're going to subtract from that. So we'll be able to see it over here. We can see the cooldown. Nothing's currently happening, and my animation is overriding my jump. sprite. So we'll have to add logic there as well. So here with update animation, we'll have to also tell it, if we are currently jumping, do not change the sprite. So let's see, how do we want to do this? We have if animation is 10, let's change this to and. If animation is 10 and I'm going to do an or. This is a little bit ugly, but basically if either of the counter cooldowns are above 0, then we're not going to change the animation. So we'll set these up. Put that in there, put that in here. So if our animation is 10 and we are not, actually I did this is logically the wrong thing. If cooldown is equal to 0 for either of those, then we can update the animation. So I need, where's equal? There we go. If either of them are equal to 0. So we might have to change these around a bit. Let's see if my logic is correct. Let's see. If it's 10, it's gonna update the animation and change the countdown or the animation timer. And I just want to check these. It's going up by 1 every time. So we're going to need to maybe change this to a greater than, because, you know, once it's passed whatever that animation value is, it's not gonna trigger that. So let's, oops, get rid of that. Let's see. Okay, so it's not staying in the air as long as I want. Change animation by 1. If animation is greater than 10, then change it. It shouldn't be changing the frame at all. It should be staying on switch costume. So let me see. Let's just kind of adjust this to say if we are currently jumping, then make sure the sprite is the jump sprite. So we can tell that by just saying if jump is greater than 0, and over here I can take this switch costume and just make sure it's always setting it to that. Though that, technically not the greatest logic, because that would be setting the costume every time. I don't know if Scratch accounts for that, where it'll optimize. But ideally it would change and then not unchange it. But we'll go ahead and re-simplify this back down. But I don't want it to trigger. I really want like an if-else-if statement, but I don't have that here. This is kind of ugly, but this is how you, I guess, do else-if statements. So if the cooldown for jump is greater than 0, make them doing the jump sprite. So this is not jumping, then check for crouch. Not crouching, update animation. Okay, that looks like it's working correctly. So we have the jump, and I have the wrong costume for crouch. Change that here. So then we have the 2 states here. Okay, then we'll also need to update our logic for checking collision. Because if we're touching an obstacle, but we're jumping or crouching under the appropriate one, then we shouldn't get hit. So we'll change this up. We'll do if, and we're going to need and. So if we touch, which one's obstacle 1? TV is obstacle 1. If we're touching that one and our jump counter is 0, then we get hit. Likewise, if we are touching our air obstacle and the character is not crouching, so we'll do and if you're touching that. I could rename these, but we'll do that. And the crouch cooldown is 0. That means you're not currently crouching. And then in that case, we can use this damage. Now I could also just put this under a broadcast so we don't have to duplicate the code. So we'll say take damage. It will take care of the damage cooldown for us. But over here we'll say broadcast, take damage. And I'll grab that here. So either of these cases will take damage. So let's check and see if this works. So lives, if we're up, did not take damage. But now we did take damage. We could add some sound effects. My jellyfish guy is still, it's too high. So move him down. Set the Y coordinate to -105. So, oop, that's not right. Where is he at? I want you to start here. Oh, that's the X coordinate, shoot. And for your... Now where are you? Where do you go? There you are. Okay, we'll put you at 187 for your X. Okay, so see if we crouch. Oh, did that not work? Well, I hit the TV. That might not be long enough. Okay, yeah, you can avoid it. Okay. So we have that logic. Now, they're always going to be in this pattern at the moment, so that's not a lot of fun. Let's also add audible feedback just to make sure that you can tell when you get hit. So in the Scratch stuff, they have audio, so we'll probably just use one of these and look for something like getting hurt sound. I chose some random sounds, so when you get hit, let's play. We don't want it to pause the game, so we'll play the bonk noise. When we jump, let's come over here. We'll play the sound. I can get rid of this part. Squeaky toy for crouch, I think. And did I do pluck for the other one? No, that was bonk. Okay. So let's see how this sounds. Okay, so yeah, that jump. Okay, so we have some audible sound type of feedback as well. We also don't have a game over state. We can add that as well. The game seems a little stuttery whenever the event happens with the sound, but not a lot I can do about that with Scratch. Let's go ahead, before we randomize these enemies, let's add a game over state. So I'm just going to add the code into the backdrop. I'm also going to, let's just create a really quick, I don't know, paint a game over. Can I draw a rectangle? We'll just do this. You don't have to watch me draw. Okay, so really basic game over screen. We're going to click on sky, go back to code. When the game starts, we're going to tell it to go to the sky background. And we can listen for, let's see, we can either do a check to see if the player's health is 0 in here, or we could do that in the backdrop itself. We have lives as a global variable, so we can just do that here. So repeat forever. If the player lives is 0, then we're at game over. So we can set the background to game over, and then we can stop the game. I forgot what that's under. Is it events? Stop all, maybe? So we can see that. Bonk, bonk. Okay, we'd have to hide all the other stuff as well. So we could add a event and say broadcast game over, and then basically add code so that everything hides itself once it sees that there's a game over. So game over, and we'll hide. We need to make sure to also say show when the game starts. Okay, so we'll test this out. Game starts over. Okay, so then there we have a game over. All right, so as far as these guys, we want them to randomly appear on the screen. And technically, I guess the other game had multiples that would show up at the same time. We can do that as well. We could have another cooldown timer to say spawn a new enemy every 30 cycles or something. So spawn cooldown. We'll probably set it to 100 to start with, just to see. And if we get spawn cooldown to 0, then we're going to spawn something and then set this back to 100 or 50 or whatever. So, we'll need if spawn cooldown is 0, we're gonna set things up, create spawn an enemy. I'm gonna probably split these into little quote-unquote functions as well. Okay, so the level, it's going to check for the game over each cycle. It's going to update its cooldowns. When the spawn cooldown is 0, it's going to call create enemy. And let's just have it decide if this is going to be 1 or 2, based on, it'll, spawn this or that. So we'll do an if-else statement. If random 1 to 2 is equal to, let's do 1, so it'll do one enemy or the other. So if our random number is 1, then we're going to spawn, let's say, obstacle 1, otherwise spawn obstacle 2. So we'll need to tell it to clone an obstacle. We can send a broadcast, so we'll do broadcast new obstacle 1. Not the best name, but okay. And we'll broadcast new obstacle 2 in the other case. Okay, so then these can detect when that's happening. So what we'll want to do here is if they go off the screen, we're not going to loop them around. We're going to wait for the level to tell it to create a new one. So in this case, if they go off the screen, we're just going to say hide. Now, when they receive new obstacle 2, we have a button to clone somewhere. Create clone of myself. When I start as a clone, we're going to put you on the edge of the screen. We want the same Y coordinate. And then I wonder if that's going to automatically go there or not. Because I'm going to guess that it does not. Oh, we also need a show here. We need to show the object. Now, we have spawn cooldown. I might make that a lot smaller just because we are testing right now. So I'm just going to change this to 10. If spawn cooldown is 0, I'll set that to 10 again. So there is a dude over there, and he's not updating. So we can just move this here. I'm going to just set these to hide. So when it basically doesn't exist when the game first starts, it'll only exist when the map is like, hey, you need to clone yourself. So let's see if that works as we want. Okay, so we have too many at the moment because my frequency is too much. We'll set that back to 50 for now. We'll see how that works, if that looks any good. We just have this guy still doing the same logic. So there's one octopus. And we can basically copy the same logic here. We just need to kind of update some stuff. Okay, when I start as a clone, we'll take its logic. Well, actually, this whole logic here. Get rid of this one. And then when the game starts, we just hide the original. So we should start the game. There shouldn't be any enemies immediately, and then we just kind of go. So is my random number generator going to give us a TV? Or not? Oh, okay, wait a minute. I did not put when I receive new obstacle 2, when I receive new obstacle 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that and check it out. So we'll got jellyfish. Oh no, that did not spawn where I want it to. I want you to also spawn off screen. So around 512. Let's see. Jellyfish. Ow. Okay, TV. Oh, that's not good. I don't want them spawning at the same time. Why did it do that? Can I also tell it to just destroy itself? Yeah, delete this clone. When... Okay, no, we don't want the loop. Okay. When we're off the side of the screen, we delete this clone. When this is off the side of the screen, we delete this clone. So that should be better. Gonna jump over. Now we're not getting any jellyfish, so I might have messed... Oh no, we got one. It's just the RNG. Okay, so, I mean, that's pretty much it. Let me go ahead and hide our cooldown spawn. It shows the lives. Let's add points, just so there's something you're working towards. So, let's say every time one of these it gets deleted, then we add to the score. So every time it's deleted, score, add 5. And for this one, let's add... That one's just a crouch, but either way, they're the same. So we start the game. I do need to set it to initialize the score to 0. Burp. So if you die, then you don't gain any more points. Okay, set score to 0. So then now we basically have a complete game. I can hit the full screen button. Doesn't look quite as good, but here we go. It would be nice to also put instructions, because we don't necessarily know how to play. Scratch does have a place to put instructions on the side when you're looking at it, so you don't necessarily have to put it inside of the game, though I would suggest that would be a better way to do things. But we have this now. We could also play some music. Let's see, start. Do they have a loop? I mean, I'm not really going to put any audio music, but you might need to have it loop, which would be annoying. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we'll go ahead, see project page. I'll just kind of fill this stuff out. Okay, so now this is shared. It'll just be under my stuff. So I have other games on Scratch, because it's kind of fun to play with. I have Finn and Kit over here. I even have a little MOOS-A-DEE studio right here. It didn't show up. I thought I added it. Okay, so we got the game working. We got a little clone of our Acrobat game for the Vic-20. Not exactly one-to-one, but, you know, features are close enough. And I'll put a link to this in here. Whenever you're on a Scratch page and look at a game, you can either view it and play, or you can click See Inside to view the quote-unquote source code. But hopefully, you know, that logic was pretty straightforward, I hope. And even though this isn't like Python code or C++ code, hopefully you understand the concepts and then you can kind of go apply that somewhere else. Even though, you know, you have to end up writing a lot more stuff from scratch whenever you're not using Scratch. Yeah. So maybe I will make another game based on one of these. Probably not the 3D ones. And it could be with Scratch, could be with Python, could be with C++, could be with Lua. I could implement it in various languages. I don't know any engines like Unity or Unreal or Godot, so sorry. But we can do the code. So let me know if there's any old school game you might like to see a clone of. Otherwise, I'll probably just find more stuff in the Vic-20 library that I think is cool and maybe simple to implement, and maybe I will see you later.